Do you read me?
Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Com Tower. This is Hajo. Do you read me? Over.
Hajo, this is Con Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Com Tower. Request permission to launch and commence the field op. Over.
Stand by. Hajo, permission granted. Say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah!
Get some. Hurrah! What's going on, everybody? We got another show. It's today. Welcome to a very rainy South Florida day. Hey, it's Baby Friday. Friday Night's Eve is upon us. Nonetheless, goddamn, it's almost the weekend, man. Thank goodness. Hey, we got a really cool show for you today. This one, I think, is one of the coolest out of all of them. Let's get all the pleasantries out of the way, and then so we get started to and bring on our guests on today. This show is brought to you by Primerica. When was the last time they had your legal documents and everything evaluated by a lawyer? Your wills, your power of attorneys, your healthcare surrogate, your living will, any of those documents. So if you said never or not in a long time, for $28 a month, you can have an entire law firm at your fingertips right over here at the palm of your hands. So, and just for $28, you get those 4 documents done up as soon as you join, you get that membership. Not only that, they also help with traffic tickets if you got kids, tax audits and everything. But I know a lot of us here are veterans or retirees. You'll say, well, Pacho, I could get this stuff done on base and whatever. Yeah, you can. And it's free with the legal beagles. However, that's a non-contested. So if anybody ever contests your will or anything else, your divorce documents and all that stuff, those lawyers, those JAG lawyers on base are not going to do that. These folks right here will, because they're going to back those documents that you're going to make up with their signature. So should it ever be contested or anything else, and just for $20, you get a bunch of other services. So give them a call. Check it out. It's on the show description, the hyperlink. Go over there and then get some good information. Also, the show is brought to you by the VA. So here's an awesome message from Mike Richmond.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. If you're having a tough time or thinking about suicide, you're not alone. And there's hope. VA's Veterans Crisis Line is full of responders who listen and help. Many are veterans or have veteran family members and friends, so they're prepared to address your challenges. After calling, you'll be connected to the next available crisis line responder. That person may ask, are you thinking of suicide? Or what plan can we put in place to keep you safe today? If you choose, the responder will share your name and personal information with your local VA Suicide Prevention Coordinator, who'll connect you to local VA assistance and resources. Don't wait. Dial 988, then press 1.
If you're struggling with, and this kind of lines up with our ending piece at the end of the show, if you're struggling with any rumination, just struggling with and contemplating suicide, at the end of the day, you matter, and tough times do get through. And it may sound like a cliche, but just stick it out or give us a call, reach out to somebody, because nobody wants to do a push-up challenge and all that stuff, because that is not going to bring you back. So you're more than welcome to hit me up through the show. You got my phone number, you got my contact information, but reach out and do a buddy check if you haven't heard from one of your friends at all. Also, the show is brought to you. Hey, we're all supporters of the great American Constitution and other great things that this great nation of ours, brings, and the freedoms that it brings us. So if you're all about freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, and all the other things that the Constitution brings us, and you support it, like, subscribe, and follow, and check us out, and let everybody else know. If not, check something out from Sitch Radio. So shout out to Brian Coburn and the rest of the crew at Sitch Radio for making this stuff happen. So with that being said, hey, let's go ahead and kick off this show because I'm super excited. One, I was contacted by Sherye Green. She's one of our guests on our show in regards to Susan Cleland. They wrote this awesome book together. They sent me a copy. It's called Mission Vigilant: I happen to have a copy because this book is, I've been in tears. It's a great book. So let's bring Sherye Green and Susan Cleland on to our show. Ladies, welcome to the Field Up. How are you today?
We're good. Thank you.
Usually what we do on the Field Up is we kind of do a little. When I'm talking with fellow service members, we'll, hey, tell me about your units, who you're with, all that good stuff. But just right quick, Sherye, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Susan. Then we'll move on to you as well.
I'm a writer living in Jackson, Mississippi, and Susan and I have been friends for over 20 years, and I knew her son, Michael, so this was very special to get to tell her story. Also have a son who is in the Navy Reserve, and so love our military, love our country, and excited to hope this book will bring a lot of hope and encouragement to the readers and listeners. That's
awesome. That's can I put that a bit of myself? Miss Cleland, please go ahead and introduce yourself to our guests. Everybody on the show.
Well, I'm a mom and a grandma, and I'm also a traveling hairdresser for homebound people. I love what I do. And we wrote this book together in hoping that we give hope to lots of people.
That's great. And thank you so much for your time. And when I first received your text, Sherye, because usually it'll say, "Hey, who is this from?" Whatever. I was like, "Okay, is this a joke?" I myself struggle with PTSD as most of us who deployed or have some residual stuff that happened. Again, as a child growing up. And then we get that double exposure to trauma while in the service and deployment. I too struggle with suicide. I hit a low, right? One of the things why I got out of the service at that time is because I knew things were coming to an end, and I was struggling with my depression, anxiety, and all these other things. Luckily, somebody intervened, and and here I am to tell my story and share with everybody else. So when I first got your text message through Facebook, Sherye, I was like, okay, who is this? Is this real? Because I have been really down, and I needed someone to pick me up. And maybe this is God's way of saying, hey, okay, here you go. And you sent me that text, and I even called Brian. I was like, Jesus, is this real? And he's like, man, hey, this means that you're doing something good out there. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your book. So I guess I'd like to start. Tell me about Susan. Tell us a little bit about Michael. And time is short, but I feel like I know him through some glimpse on the book, but I want to get it. Obviously, you being his mom. Tell me about your son. Tell me about Michael.
Well, he was awesome. He just made you smile. He always thought of everybody else before himself. He wanted to do good for everybody. He was like the life of the party. And of course, we didn't know the signs. He didn't really talk to us about a lot of stuff. He just told us that, he had it. He was doing fine. But he loved the military. Oh, my goodness. Loved it. Since 9, I guess, he wanted to fly planes. And so he went in the service, and he didn't get to fly, but he got to go up in them, and he got to work on them, and he loved it. And doing, search and rescue just made him feel so wonderful. I think since he was such a pleaser, that was really hard because we can't please everybody. Right. We just can't. And I would actually tell him, look, I know you're struggling with some things. I think you need to go talk to somebody. And he would say, Mom, I got this. I got this. Yeah. And so now when I hear people say that, I'm like, I don't even got it. Go. And ever since he passed, I still go to counseling. And I think that's the only way that we can cope is having somebody to talk to. But a year before he passed, I lost my mom. And then I lost him. And then 8 months later, I lost my sister. And I told my husband, I said, look, you're fixing to lose me. You got to find me somebody. And she seriously saved my life. And my husband has been working at the VA for almost 40 years. He's an Army vet, and he loves veterans. You can tell because he's been there so long. And so he just wants to make sure that they're taken care of because they've done so much for us. And he basically said, look, you're going to have to do this forever. Just stay on track with counseling. So that's what I do. And so since I've done that, I've really gotten so much stronger. You never know when the tears are going to come. But when somebody asks for help, it's the best thing in the world.
I think for a lot of us, I know it was for me, and I can't, I think I'm speaking maybe to some degree for Michael. When we're down in that rabbit hole, we don't want to, because a lot of thoughts that go through our head, and again, I'm trying to be very clean again, not to.
Okay.
Um,
We want you to be you, really.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm trying to hold back a little bit too.
No, be
I get
you.
emotional when
Me too.
because a lot of us we don't want to scare our families
Right.
with the shit that we got going on in our heads.
Right. Don't you think we have it too though? Because we're
Right.
worried for y'all.
And we don't want to be judged to the point that, or because it's easier to talk to another service member and say, bro, I got this shit going on in my head. Because they get it, and we don't want to put that burden on you all and say, well, this dude is fucking crazy. In other words, be judged, be seen in a different way. And sometimes I've been there because it gets so overwhelming. And that you just want peace. You just want calm, the thoughts, that rabbit hole. The deeper you go, and you go to the next, to the next hole, and just deeper and deeper, and it's harder to get yourself out. So it's hard for a lot of us to ask for help. And I've already lost several friends, due to suicide. I can't even, like I said, mentioned earlier, I can't even fathom what it would be like, losing a child. But it's so hard to talk and ask for help because that's what we're afraid of, and to share our thoughts and feelings, thinking of, oh my God, are they going to think I'm crazy?
No. So to me, when you talk to your friends, it's great to have people to talk to like that, but they don't have solutions. When you actually talk to somebody that knows how to help, they have solutions. They have tools for us to use. And that was something that I noticed in my therapist. I was like, oh my goodness, she has given me so many different ideas for me to try. And I need to find the one that works for me. And I still, to this day, do some of those things. Like one that I think is just wonderful is go put your feet in the real world. If it's sand, if it's dirt, if it's grass, feel the world. Don't feel everything else, because once you do, it starts working throughout your whole body, and it really does help. That's just one. But my biggest thing for myself too is I love to journal. I feel like once I've written it out, it's kind of left my body, and then I can burn it, throw it away, keep it. You just choose. And I've been journaling for years and years. And so when I started journaling all this, I was like, I got to get with my friend Sherye, because we got to help other mamas. Because when all the guys and the girls came for his funeral, I'm not going to forget this ever. They were all sitting in my living room, standing around, sitting and talking. And they were like, Mike had it together. We never, ever thought Mike. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? And they said, the 22. And I said, what do you mean 22?
Yep, 22.
And they started telling me this, and my whole inside started thinking about all these mamas around the world, like all these mamas. Here I feel this way, but these other mamas. And I said, there's got to be something we got to do. And so when I started journaling, I got with Sherye. I was like, we got to save some lives. We have to share that there's hope. There is hope.
So, and this is a great segue, Sherye. So obviously you guys have known each other, and you knew Michael from, very young age and everything. So clearly, I know Susan, you knew Sherye was a writer and everything. So how did the whole, as you're finding in this new version of you coping with this tremendous loss, how did the book come about, and who approached who on the idea and such? Sherye, can you share a little bit of that?
Yes, I think it was about maybe 3 years ago now, Susan, actually in June of that year, that I think Susan and I went to lunch actually, and she just broached the subject and asked if I would consider writing the book. So the first thing I did, the book was released last August of 2023, so that'll give you some idea. I was also working on some other projects, so I kind of had to juggle that in terms of time, but had to do a lot of research. Certainly, one of the things that I just felt very privileged and honored to have access to were Susan's prayer journals. And so that was probably the first thing I remember doing as I was given those. Again, so she's a friend and I'm familiar with her handwriting. I'm also a retired school teacher, so that helped me. Susan has beautiful penmanship. But anyway, I sat down, I think that November maybe of that year, and transcribed those prayer journals into a file on my computer. It probably took me almost a month, I think, to do that. And then we actually worked on a book proposal together. And then I did an enormous amount of research on suicide itself and veteran suicide and that phenomenon. Also, we're very privileged in the book it is Susan's story and Michael's, but we had many other mothers and some fathers who had lost sons and daughters, some to suicide, though not all. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and I've never lost a child, so I have no platform from which to speak, can only imagine. But I would think there are many common, I guess, experiences, emotions that you go through when you lose a child, although losing a child to suicide is different than any other manner of death because that individual has made that choice to end his or her life. And so that just leaves with it, I think, a lot of other things that the living have to deal with in the wake of that death. But we were very privileged. Susan is part of a mother's grief support group in her area. And so several of those mothers were very courageous to tell their story. We also have several ministers, one of whom had lost a daughter to suicide, who helped us.
Yes,
Susan and I are both Christians. We are both believers in Jesus Christ. And so that is the story, sort of the lens through which the story is told. But I would certainly want your listeners to understand this is not a book promoting Christianity. Susan's whole point was this is her truth and this is her story and what she and both I have found to be truth. But every human has to make that journey on their own. But the main thing is that there is hope and that there is help. Another thing, I have a good friend who's a retired Marine chaplain, Erskine Alvis, and he was a wonderful resource for the book and is quoted throughout the book, but there's also a wonderful sort of standalone piece from him in the back of the book. That's another thing in the back of the book, in the resource section. Probably trying to show you kind of the difference. It's almost as much copy as the book itself, but we wanted people that were hurting or that were looking for answers to some of life's confounding questions to have a place to go. So we've listed lots of organizations, podcasts. That's how we came upon yours.
Thank you.
organizations, sort of tips. We also had a clinical psychologist, Dr. Daniel Lamina in California. Yes, that was, again, did another standalone piece for us about sort of the psychology of suicide. It's not doubting or even say anger or feeling bad that gets any of us into trouble. It's what we do with that anger or with that depression or with those dark thoughts. I've had dark times in my own life, and I sort of think of suicide. I've tried to, and I've lost several friends to this manner of death. But try to imagine it as almost like you wake up in the night and it's dark in your room and you get up out of the bed and you're headed for the bathroom. But instead of finding the door to the bathroom, you end up in the closet. And it's dark and it's almost like in a dark cul-de-sac. And if you can't get out, if you can't get your way back to the door, if you can't find the light switch, that's when you, as you talked about, go to that next level of the rabbit hole. And that's when I think, trouble comes. But we also, I think, especially for active duty or even veteran, anybody, the three audiences that Susan's nonprofit speaks to are active duty military, veterans, and first responders.
Right.
That strength is standing up and saying, I need help. I just think that's human nature for any of us. I think sometimes, this is just me, but I think sometimes for men more so than women to say, I've got this, or I'm macho, or I should be able to handle this. There's no human on the planet that can handle the stresses of this life. But I think that was another thing. And that's, to me, the most beautiful thing about Susan's story is her courage and her willingness to share her voice amidst the tears and amidst the pain, because I'm sure that is very hurtful to have to sort of relive all of this every time she shares it, but with the great hope that she found hope and that hope is available to others. So Susan, thank you for your courage and just your love for other people, that you would not want other families to go through this.
Yeah, I think it's, being able, and thank you so much for, obviously there's a reason. I mean, you pull your resources together, and obviously telling that story and helping Susan tell her story, obviously brings a little bit of healing as well, because, being able to, because what do you do with, now in the sense, life has got to go on and you try to pick up the pieces, but you, as we all know, I've lost friends to suicide as well. You're left with this ball, and it's, and all these questions and all these other things. And it's like, what do I do with it? And I think being able to tell that story, I know it brought you a little bit of comfort and being able to help us at the same time, Susan. And so when I know in the book, but I want the audience to hear from you, obviously, as you're picking up the pieces and you wrote this book, how did Mission Vigilant come about?
So my son's name is Michael Benson, and we wanted to always say his initials. Wow. So every time we say Mission Vigilant, I think of him. Wow. Because it's a mission, and we are so vigilant about making it happen.
Whoa. And how did the whole organization moving forward? Was it just did it just start out in its infancy stages as okay, we're going to help veterans for right now? Because I know it expands to just it's something much bigger than that. I mean, you guys help out first responders and everything. So what was originally when you put it all together? I guess what was the vision initially, in comparison to what it is now?
Well, there was a bracelet that my son had, and he wore it for 9 years.
Yes.
And that was the first thing that everyone asked. Did you get the bracelet?
Carpe diem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that was very special to him. And I've never had a tattoo. I haven't. But I went with all his friends and my husband, and we got this tattoo. And the reason why It's because I wanted to be able to share my son's story every time they saw it. And it's right here.
That's beautiful.
So he's with Jesus. Half my heart's in heaven. So I share that every time somebody looks at it. And it was during COVID, and my son couldn't go to ROTC and work out. He couldn't go to football practice. He couldn't do anything.
Right.
He's like, Mom, I need to learn something. I got to exercise. I think I want to learn boxing, fundamentals of it. So we got this amazing trainer that one of my friends told me about, and I took him to the park, and she saw it, and she asked all about Michael, which I get so excited every time somebody asks about him because I can share about him.
Right.
And she said, you got to do something, like you're going to make something really happen. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, she started sending me different things to look at, and I really liked the buddy check, like just checking on your people. Really liked it. So then I saw this lady, and her name is Michelle Ladd, and she travels around the United States. And at the time, she was single. She's married now to a Marine.
Right.
I think so. I think he's a Marine. But anyway, so she has 2 veteran sons, and she has not lost one, but she always was worried because of some things that they've gone through.
Right.
And she wanted to share the awareness. Well, I loved that this woman is just traveling around the United States, sharing the awareness and trying to help all these veterans and on her own money. So I looked her up and I called her, and she said, I want you to tell me the last 6 months of your son. I was like, ooh. I said, I can, but I'm going to cry. And she said, that's okay. So I did. And I just loved everything about her. And I said, I want you to come to Mississippi because we're going to do something good for you. And she did. And we put on a big, huge event for her. And we raised her a lot of money.
Wow.
And when she was here, she actually did so much good. She helped a Marine that was struggling. He had actually written his letter that morning. He didn't tell anybody. And she said, just with this one person, if that's what it was meant to be for. And I said, that's all we want to do. If it's just for one individual we can save, we've
One
done
life.
what we needed to do. Yes. Yes. And so anyway, she said, I really think you've got something big here, Susan. You really need to think about it. So our family got together and we talked about there's a piece of the puzzle missing when you get out of the service about the stuff that you have, and you need to talk and you need to share, and there's nothing because people are afraid to go places because who's going to see this? Who's going to hear about it? Is it going to change my rank? Is it going to change the way people look at me? So guess what? We decided we want to pay for you no matter what. It's anonymous. So we started finding people that we wanted to serve on our board. And then we built our board. And then after that, we started talking to counselors in Mississippi, and they were just extremely ecstatic because there's so many police officers, first responders, vets, active duty people. I mean, there's people that are serving that will do this anonymously because they're so afraid to change their ranks. And it's been wonderful, the things that we have seen happen.
That's awesome. Yes, and I can tell you firsthand, for me, I retired as an officer. I started out enlisted. You know, you don't in that environment. Again, I can't speak for the other, but I know in the Marine Corps, we are enablers, and we harvest that environment not in a good way. I'll give you an example. You know, you see a sergeant or somebody or a seasoned sergeant. We have different ranks. So in the Marine, you see a gunnery sergeant, E7. So he's chewing some kid out and, knife handing him and blah, 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 flips a desk over and in our head, in our environment, we're like, oh, hey, that's good shit. Somebody's getting counseled. We call that counseling, good. However, obviously now that I'm on a different side of the fence and many years of therapy, which by the way, I still do bi-weekly therapies, by the way.
I'm so proud. That's wonderful.
Oh yeah. But in our heads, like, oh yeah, that's good shit. However, that's not normal. it's not normal that, this guy and whatever, and what is going on in that individual's head that's making me, react like that, and just flip his light switch on this kid for whatever reason. And, we just don't want to ask for help. It was my case. I'm bad. And again, I say my marriage because, it's for different reasons. However, I was in a marriage I wasn't happy with, and I had all these things. I was just losing. I felt like I was losing control. I came back from a meeting with one of my commanding officers. I worked directly for him, and I just lost I lost it. I was crying. I didn't know why, and I just all this emotion, and I just picked up the phone and I was like, "Hey, man, I can't deal with this anymore." And I was basically saying goodbye. I was literally my plan was get on my bike. Go to the armory, check out my 9mm. I already had rounds on me because we could get rounds but I was going to get on my bike, go down. If you're familiar with Camp Pendleton, I was going to drive down to one of the ranges down Pogus and just basically just make silence. That was literally the plan. I don't know why I picked up the phone, but my buddy, he came within 10 minutes from main side Camp Pendleton to where we're at. That's a long drive. Dude made it in 10 minutes. He said, "Hey, just give me 10 minutes and I'll be there." And he was here. And, he intervened, which is good. A lot of us don't want to ask for help because, one, our career, our family. What if I'm crazy? What if, this, what's it going to do? So as asinine as it may sound, I don't know, as asinine as it may sound. However, that's the showstopper for us because, again, we should just be, asking for help and promoting this. Now it's gotten better. It has gotten better, but you're right. I think we could do better. Sherye, did you also, when you guys were writing this book and, did you also get involved with Mission Vigilant as well? Do you still keep up? And is there anything else coming down the pipeline between, you and Susan that you guys may be collaborating on anything? By the way, somebody just put in Rebecca. Shout out to Rebecca. Thanks so much for that awesome message right there, and thank you for your support on our show. But yes, Susan, are you guys? Is there any we should know a little bit more, and more should be done, and more information should be out there? Is there a follow-up book to this, ladies, or what?
Not at this time, although Susan and I've kind of maybe batted around some ideas. But I think what we're trying to do, and we again appreciate your kind invitation to join you today, is to share through podcasts or television interviews. It's just hard when you write a book to kind of be the one-man band, to be the writer and then the marketer. And we have a literary agent who's been fabulous, and his company published the book, and we are so grateful for that. But there's just still a lot of work that has to be done. And so I think right now, just to spread the good word, Susan's plan with Mission Vigilant is a wonderful model. It is for people in need in Mississippi only. And so that would be, I guess, an important thing for anybody listening, say that may be in Washington State or in Pennsylvania or Florida, that might be contacting her. And Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but these dollars right now are just for Mississippians. But it's also another thing I think that Susan wants to do is to inspire others. There certainly have got to be other families or even a friend of a family. You may not have lost someone, but your best friend lost their son or daughter to this tragedy, and you want to help others. But it's a great model that they built. And I think just, I've been a recipient of counseling in my own life, and it has saved my sanity. And again, just, we live in this world that is so temporary, first of all, but is so throwaway in many ways. If you want food, you go through the drive-thru. If you need money, you go through the mini bank. If you don't like what you're watching on TV, you pick up the remote and you click it and you're on to another channel. And we do that a lot of times. We transfer that to relationship, I think, a lot of times. But that's our great hope, that we will be able to inspire others. And I think also give other mothers courage. And Susan, you certainly speak to this because I don't know that part of the story. But as I said before, Susan could have so easily stayed in the corner or stayed in her bed and not said any of this.
Right.
And there are so many mothers. She's in several support groups that I know those women from the stories she's told me have been encouraged. And not that everybody. I think God leads us to do different things. Susan was led to start this nonprofit, and it's been a great way for her. Other people may think there's no way I could ever do that. But even just to find your voice, I think it's so important in life to find your voice and learn to speak up for yourself and learn to speak out if you're having a problem.
Right.
And I think that's another great thing that Susan's doing, is just helping other moms and dads that have found themselves in this horrible situation with the loss of a child to suicide, of an adult child to suicide, to find their voice and also to learn to put one foot on the floor again. And that there's a line in the book, Susan, I love it. It says something like, one day that Eric and I discovered that there still was a lot of life to be lived. And that God's providing that.
No, and you're right. I mean, a fellow warrant officer, one thing that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I do see eye to eye. I got to give him credit where credit is due, But he did say that, on your tombstone, it's the day you were born, that little dash, and then the day that you passed away. And so your life is entirely summed up in that little dash. So
That's right.
you gotta make that dash count. I think it's an from tragedy, good things can also come out of it. If that makes sense. I think raising awareness, because the 22 a day. We can do a lot of push-ups. There's a guy that I don't know if you guys heard of, Chef Rush. He's on LinkedIn. I mean, this dude is huge. He's a chef for the White House. The guy's amazing, does a lot of stuff, and he does 2,200 push-ups a day in name of veterans.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, the guy's super jacked. I know those things are great. It doesn't bring the life back. I think we need to do more, and I think all the armed services, although it's getting better, we got to just do our best to raise that stigma that, hey, asking for help is okay, and that it's okay to not be okay. I know probably, Michael's thing was, hey, I got it, I'm good. My thing was, sometimes I'm okay. My wife already, when she sees, because she can read me like a book. And that's how I ended up part of Warrior Build Foundation as well. They have a great, amazing PTSD group. You may want to add this to as your resources. Give Aaron Siebert, and I'll send you that information. And as a matter of fact, Brian is also part of that organization as well. And that's where I got started with my podcast. But we also do a Zoom call. We have a PTSD group, a weekly PTSD group. And it's, you're amongst people. It is faith-based. Aaron is, he is a counselor through the Chapel Corps, the Navy Chapel Corps. So all the chapels from the armed forces got together and put this program together. And it's amazing. A lot of us do struggle with religion. I was born and raised Roman Catholic. I was born in Colombia. So, I mean, going to church was every day, as every Sunday thing, I will say this, and you are right. Myself and the big guy will solve our things someday. But this book, it is amazing. It's not all up in your face, because at the end of the day, we need some type of hope. What's going to get us through? Whether it's hope, it's religion, it's the Bible, whatever. I mean, how else are we going to move on with our lives and try to pick up these pieces of, this thing we call life that have, it's kind of broken at this moment. We need something to, get us through. And I think this book is an amazing is an amazing thing. By the way, I was in Japan around the same time Michael was too. He got there a few months after the earthquake tsunami. He got there, a few days, because he got there in March. That's right. Yeah,
That's right.
it was March 11th is when the earthquake tsunami happened. My son left 2 days before back to the U.S. He was there with me for about a month, but we were there around us, and I flown back to Okinawa for a couple of things because I was in Fuji, on mainland Japan, around the same time. So, but I just gotta say that I wish I would have known. I would have known him. He sounds like an amazing person. Susan, I gotta say two parts that just where I completely lost it. His hugs. When you describe his hugs, I mean, yeah, I completely. And then obviously when they were spreading the ashes in Gab's Mountain, and then you call your daughter, that right there too. I mean, it really got me really hard. But where can we? So Susan, Sherye, where can people find you on social media? Where can people reach out if they, maybe they want to use you as a mentor, a guide on how to write a book and things like that? Are you on social media? Where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook as Sherye Green. Also, I have an author page as Sherye Simmons Green. It's Simmons. That was my maiden name. That's really the only social media I'm on. But I also have a website that is www.sherrysimmonsgreen.com that you can find more about my work there.
Okay. It's all right there on the screen, folks. It's also on the show description as well. So if you want to check out more about Sherye's work, and she's got some really amazing stuff coming down the pipeline as well, with a World War II Holocaust survivor as well, which I'm really looking forward to reading down. And Susan, where can people find more information, not only about yourself, but also about Michael and about the amazing work that you're doing with Mission Vigilant?
The best way is missionvigilant.org, but we're also on Instagram and Facebook, Mission Vigilant.
That's awesome. Ladies, this has been an emotional roller coaster for me. I think it's important. It's okay to be vulnerable, right? I mean, yes. Yeah, but I think the work that you, Sherye, thank you so much for helping Susan bring this story to light. And Susan, thanks so much for, being vulnerable and sharing a piece of not only yourself and your family, but also about Michael, because we do need to raise more awareness. Should be out there, as well as resources to our veteran community, because at the end of the day, and to some degree, and I don't want to highlight myself, I'm just saying that we raise our right hand in the name of God, God, country, and core, and to defend against enemies, all foreign and domestic. And then when that's done, what else are we doing for these warriors to help them cope post-service? I think we need to, that is that, like Susan, you said earlier, that's one piece of that puzzle that maybe we need to find and just get it right. Does that make sense?
It does. If we didn't have y'all sign up and be our heroes, what would we do? We would be in trouble.
Exactly.
So we're so thankful for all of y'all that serve.
Yes. Thanks so much, ladies. I look forward to, definitely we can talk about this more, and we'll definitely look to bring you back as well and talk a little bit more. But thank you so much. Please stick around, and we'll talk a little bit after the show. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart and the rest of everybody, thank you so much, and a big salute and hoorah, get some to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, excuse me. It has been an amazing show. I highly recommend you check out this book right over here. I know Susan and Sherye shared. I know the work is for Mississippians and everything, but maybe we can all get together, pass this information around. Maybe we can grow this organization into something that much bigger. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, and when I close out my show, while all those challenges that we have out there for, push-up, ice buckets, and all this stuff in the name of veterans and whatever else, it's still not going to bring that life back. And if you, again, I'll say it again, if you've been struggling with ruminating and going into a dark hole where you feel like you just can't get out, please reach out to me. Reach out to my show. Reach out to on my Facebook. Reach out to a buddy, TRICARE, Military One Source, VA Veterans Crisis Line. But just reach out. And if you haven't heard from a friend or you haven't done a buddy check in a while, hey, that's your homework for this weekend. So that way, because at the end of the day, if we can save one life, I mean, that's one life, one less life that family, doesn't have to, put a funeral together. Because I don't want to be the guy, talking about your eulogy. Unless you die due to natural causes, then we're talking about something different. But hey, folks, that's it for today. I just want to go ahead. I think this is a good place to end Dex. So from the bottom of my heart, hoorah, get some. Ice Tomas, Daisuki. We'll see you next week, folks.